Sub weekend ရန်ကုန်ကနေကြိုဆိုပါတယ်ကျွန်တော်လာမယ့် sub weekend အတွက်ကိုကျွန်တော်ပညာရှင်လုပ်ငန်းရှင်နဲ့ဒီ international ဒီ community ကဒီမိတ်ဆွေတွေကိုဖိတ်ခေါ်ပြီးတော့ interview နဲ့ဖြစ်ပါတယ်အဲ့တော့ဒီနေ့ကတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီ Glen ပေါ့နော်Glen ကိုကျွန်တော်ဖိတ်ခေါ်တော့ပါ Hello Glen how are
Yeah.
you
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me here today.
yeah, as you know we are having a sub weekend in the coming December so it is all about innovation and global scalability
Yep.
and so we talk about cross-border trends like global business process outsourcing market
Mhm.
or e-commerce market or education market or global management consulting services market or it could be Web3 or it could be sort of cross-border sustainable agriculture market, all those things. So pretty much we are bringing the SMEs together with the startup so that the startup could bring the SME to the next level.
Yep.
And yep, so it is all about creating platforms. So that's the background of the Startup Weekend and the team behind it. And then as I'm inviting you from an investor standpoint, would you mind sort of explaining to us a little bit about Seedefy?
Sure. So I'm Glenn, COO at Seedefy. Over at Seedefy, we are trying to address the cross-border funding gap. If I were to break it down a little bit further, there are a lot of inefficiencies in the fundraising process, typically within regional countries around Southeast Asia, wanting to come into Singapore to fundraise. And on the flip side, we have Singapore investors wanting to invest out of Southeast Asia, but may not have the local resources and know how to. So Seedefy, we aim to breach cross-border funding globally. And yeah, that's where we are.
I see. So you're all about it's kind of a platform. I would say you're connecting the investor founders and partners so
Yes.
that the investors can really see the pre-vetted startups, right?
Yeah.
So how would you qualify a startup to get into your platform?
Yeah. So we pre-vet our startups. Two gates rather. So the first one is having a legal entity incorporated wherever you are. We require an incorporation document just to prove or validate the entity's existence. The other one, we do have a human touch point before the startup comes on board. Typically, myself or one of our colleagues will get on a call with startups to understand their fundraising pain points and if and how the platform can support their fundraising efforts.
This is very interesting for everyone joining the Startup Weekend program, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, so let me just get straight to the questions. So
Sure.
the first question that I have in mind is like, because as you're already kind of sort of getting in touch with all the investors in Singapore and of course elsewhere as well, right? So the first question to you is, what do you think is the most critical for a newly funded startup team?
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for the question. So to answer your question straight off, I think having the right founding team members is always key, especially for a very early stage or newly founded startups, right? And if I were to break that down further, it's important that these early founding team members have the different skill sets required to commercialize an idea, right? This would typically be a combination of tech guys, product guys, and business guys, right? And the whole ideal of it is to commercialize the idea, get into an MVP, a minimum viable product, at the lowest cost possible, right? Just to get it out in the market. So apart from having, I say, the right skill sets, the other thing I want to call out is having these team members being invested into the company's mission and vision, because a startup's journey at the earlier stage is always the toughest, right? Founders have to typically multi-hat across different functions, right? So a lot of passion and greed is needed to carry out the day-to-day work, just to really get that idea into a proper business.
So the first thing you're looking for is the drive that the founders have on the vision and the mission and everything. Apart from all of the teamwork, the product, everything, right?
Yeah.
So that's a very interesting sort of standpoint. And second question to you is like, what are the parameters that you should watch out for, so for a startup to financially sustainable for the short term and long term? Because most of the startup, right, as you are coming from as an investor standpoint, what are the investors looking for in terms of numbers, funding, and everything?
Sure. So I have, I guess, spent a stint in a boutique VC here in Singapore. And personally, my favorite parameter is always LTV over CAC, right? Lifetime value over customer acquisition cost. And I would say the ratio speaks for itself, right? How much value are you going to get out of customer? And how much does it cost you to acquire customer? Typically, if the ratio is above one, you have a sound business model, right? A founder typically, or rather, VCs in the past had the mentality of growth at all costs, right? Where they forego basic unit economics and they see profitability as a struggle when they become really, really big, right? So a lot of the VCs or investors are focusing on good, strong unit economics. That is to say, you buy an orange for $1, you can sell it. You can sell the orange juice for $4 or $5. Yeah. So profitability measured by LTV over CAC.
So it's about the customer lifetime value. So if like I spend $1 to get the customer, then the customer should stay for like maybe like 3 months, and then if I get back like $1 per month, then I'm just getting $5. So
Exactly.
it's like the LTV versus so the lifetime value is like a 5, and then the customer sort of acquisition cost is like $1. So
right.
I just get like sort of spend 1, but get back 4.
Yeah.
And how about the cost per transaction? Any sort of for any early stage sort of startup, do you also look for the sort of profitability in such a way that the cost of the transactions is also somewhat significant as well, or you won't consider first?
So I think to address your question, ultimately the net margin should make sense, right? A lot of the big startups, I won't name who, but a lot of them in the earlier days, they spent a lot of money just to acquire customers. Growth, growth, growth. But then ultimately, they felt that actually they spend too much to acquire the customers and undermines the value that they can get out of the customers. And then ultimately, they're just burning more and more money to service these clients each day. So LTV and CAC is a sort of a quick ratio to understand profitability. But of course, to your point, transaction costs and all that should be factored in. Ultimately, measuring your net margin should be profitable business.
Yeah, that's also very interesting. I also had the same bad experience. I had like 1,000 users in my marketplace, and they spend around 100 lakhs Myanmar jacks.
Yeah.
So for every 100 lakh, we lose 1 lakh.
Oh wow!
So,
Yeah.
so it is very difficult for us. The more we lost, we will lose money. I guess so. That's the thing I think you're talking about. So basically, you're talking about the customer acquisition cost versus the LTV. And at the same time, eventually, the business should aim for the net revenue, right? So otherwise, it's not promising or attractive for the investors, I guess. And then how about the what are the lowest hanging fruit? Of course, Seedefy is one of the best sort of the lowest hanging fruit for self founders to secure seed funding. But what do you think are other sort of the lowest hanging fruit as well?
So angel seed funding, or rather early stage funding. Again, I mentioned right team members. I think this is very important for an early stage because many of time the investors are investing in people rather than company. They want to understand that the right team members, founders have the technical know-how, the passion and greed to deliver the company's mission and vision, right? So having the right team member is really, really important. The other one that I would say a lot of the early stage investors would rather have or would rather invest in a company that has is to have an MVP ready, right? A minimum viable product. This is defined by the most basic function of your product. And it's really to get out two things, right? To understand the market requirements and one, so you can go back and reiterate the product and go to market again. Because a lot of founders think they always have the best product until they go to market. So my advice is go to market as quick as possible, get feedback, reiterate, and ultimately it should lead to two things, right? Proof of concept, does the idea work? And proof of value, would your customers pay you in the future? And then that way, once you have all that sorted out, it's important to have these, I would say, documented in a very nice, digestible pitch deck. This way, I think, yeah, I've seen a lot of founders, if they tick all the boxes, funding shouldn't be an issue.
I see. So the lowest hanging fruits are what we have as a founders. So if we are systematically sort of structuring our sort of a business in such a way that it is presentable and it is attractive and that it is also showing our best talents among our team members, and then the proof of customers, everything, then I think everyone, like including like sort of the investor from Seedefy or any sort of friend or family, anyone will like you, right? So that will be the
Yeah.
lowest hanging fruit. Yeah, thanks so much for this great advice as well. And then how about the industry sectors, right? For the startup, right, we talk about e-commerce, we talk about education, we talk about Web3, we talk about AI as well. So I forgot to mention about the AI. AI is like
Yeah.
trending these days, and also sort of we talk about sustainable agriculture, and also we also talk about sort of sustainable development, sort of or like responsible businesses, and a lot of sort of industry sectors are gaining tractions these days. So what do you think are the most promising sort of industry sector that in sort of a startup should explore into? Or what do you think from the investor standpoint? What do you think are the most promising and popular sort of industry sector?
Sure, sure. So just on the broad level, I think some of the more interesting sectors that are gaining a lot of popularity. I mean, AI for sure, but it has been around for a long time, but recently gained a lot of popularity because of ChatGPT. And I actually would say that this inflates the valuation by a lot. As an investor, we see a lot and a lot of AI companies around. So it really crowds the market, inflates valuation, and I don't think it's sustainable in the long run. But AI is always a good tech, right? Another broad sector that is facing a lot of, I would say, public sector pressure, governments, regulators, is ESG, right? Sustainable tech, green tech, with many countries laying out their national net zero ambitions. They're actually pushing for a lot of the private sector entities to innovate and contribute in this sector. Personally, I'm interested in fintech. So interesting ideas like open banking, where banks start to share data with each other to service customers better. Embedded finance, where a lot of the big tech players are coming in to financial services, like Apple and Goldman Sachs, right? Personally, I think what is highly relevant for Startup Weekend Yangon is the digitization of SMEs. I've personally experienced this as a consultant in fintech. The biggest problem a lot of the governments are trying to solve is how can we digitize the SME sector, right? SME contributes easily 80 to 90% of any economy's growth. And a lot of them are quite traditional. So if you can find a way to digitize SMEs in general, I think you are in a very, very sweet spot, and a lot of investors, governments would really like you.